My father's voice, sharp and clear, cut through the lively dinner conversation. "Scarlett," he continued, "not everyone is destined for the top, and that's perfectly fine. But leave the serious work to individuals like your brother." I gently put down my fork, my hands trembling beneath the table. "And yet, somehow, Dad," I stated calmly, meeting his gaze, "aside from you, my unambitious self is the only other person at this table with a proven track record of achievement." My brother gave that familiar, infuriatingly dismissive smirk. "I'd witnessed my whole life. My name is Scarlett Greer, and I'm currently 32. However, when this all began, I was merely the overlooked middle child in a family that measured achievement by lavish displays and social standing. My father, Richard Greer, established one of Chicago's most prosperous real estate empires. Benjamin, my older brother, was his favorite, the clear successor to the business, despite his Olivia, my younger sister, was the family's beloved, more interested in trendy brunches and influencer deals than any real obligations. Then there was me, quiet, reliable, and, in my family's estimation, easily forgotten. The rest of dinner blurred into a continuous hum of conversation. I wasn't a part of. Benjamin bragged about a new property deal he supposedly closed, though I'd heard whispers at the last company event that it was full of issues. My father beamed at him, asking pointed questions to keep his son in the spotlight. Olivia interjected, occasionally sharing stories from her latest social outings. Meanwhile, I sat silently, pushing food around my plate, wondering why I still put myself through these gatherings. When I was younger, I used to try to keep pace to impress them. I graduated near the top of my class and took on every internship I could find, believing that if I just worked hard enough, they'd finally acknowledge me. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. "You're too reserved," my dad would say. "You don't possess the competitive drive for this industry." It didn't matter that I consistently outperformed my peers or had innovative ideas to advance the company. They had already made up their minds about me. The turning point occurred a few years back, though my family didn't even notice. I was at one of the company's routine weekly strategy meetings, mere formality, where my dad and Benjamin dictated all the decisions while the rest of us observed. That day, I had a proposal, a comprehensive strategy to transform a struggling property into a profitable residential complex. I'd dedicated weeks to research, crunching numbers, and perfecting a pitch I believed even my dad couldn't dismiss. When it was finally my turn to speak, I barely uttered 2 sentences before Benjamin cut me off. "That location is a lost cause," he stated dismissively. "We've already invested too much. Let's move on." I've actually discovered a way I started, but my father waved his hand, silencing me. If Benjamin says it's not worth it, then it's not worth it. Next item, I remember sitting there, my face burning, my meticulously crafted plan ignored, as they proceeded as if I weren't even in the room. That night, I made a decision. If they wouldn't listen to me within their company, I would build my own. I didn't immediately resign from the family company. That would have drawn too much attention. Instead, I began small, working on my own projects quietly in the background. A dilapidated duplex on the outskirts of town became my first investment. It was all I could afford with my meager savings, but I saw potential where no one else did. Weekends were spent painting walls, replacing fixtures, and mastering the intricacies of property management. When I sold it a year later, the profit was modest, but it was mine, and that was just the beginning. Over the next few years, I scouted undervalued properties throughout Chicago, collaborating with Sophia Tran, a shrewd real estate investor I'd met through a mutual acquaintance. Sophia was precisely what I needed in a business partner: intelligent, experienced, and equally determined to prove people wrong. Together, we built something remarkable, one property at a time, that by the time I turned 30, my portfolio was flourishing. What began as a sideline had evolved into a legitimate business, encompassing residential complexes, boutique office spaces, and even some prime retail locations. Sophia and I operated everything under a company name no one in my family would recognize: Tran and Partners. I wasn't just accumulating wealth. I was establishing a reputation, quietly and steadily. I had become one of my father's most formidable competitors. The irony: my family had no clue. While they were busy overseeing their sprawling, mismanaged empire, I was acquiring properties they had written off as unprofitable and transforming them into successes. Each deal felt like a personal triumph, a small step toward proving to myself that I was more than the shadow they had cast me in. One evening, as I was absorbed in financial reports, Sophia entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You've been at it all day," she remarked, placing 1 cup in front of me. "Take a break, Scarlett. Even machines need to recharge." I smiled, taking a sip. I can't help it. Every time I see how well the numbers are trending, I start thinking about the next move. There's this office building near the Loop I've been eyeing. Sophia raised an eyebrow as she settled into the chair opposite me. "Let me guess. It's undervalued, ignored by every major player. But you've already figured out how to transform it into a gold mine?" "Pretty much," I admitted with a grin. "It's exactly the kind of property my dad and Benjamin would dismiss, which makes it perfect." Sophia leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "Speaking of them, don't you think it's only a matter of time before they discover who's behind Tran and Partners?" "Maybe," I said, shrugging. "But by the time they do, it won't matter. We're not just surviving, we're thriving." And besides, I hesitated, swirling the coffee in my cup. Part of me doesn't even care if they find out anymore. They've dismissed me my whole life. I've learned to live without their approval. Sophia tilted her head, studying me. "You're not doing this for their approval, Scarlett. You're doing it for you. And if they ever do figure it out, well, let's just say I wouldn't mind being a fly on the wall when that happens." I chuckled, feeling the weight of her words resonate with me. "You're right," I said. "I'm doing this for me. And whether they find out or not, it doesn't change the fact that we've built something incredible." Sophia raised her coffee cup in a mock toast to building something incredible. I clinked my cup against hers, a renewed sense of purpose burning in my chest. To building something incredible. At every family gathering, my dad and Benjamin never missed an opportunity to remind me of my supposed useless. "Scarlett, when was the last time you even set foot in the office?" My dad would sneer, shaking his head as if my mere presence were an affront. Benjamin, always eager to join in, would chuckle and add, "For someone with shares in the company, you certainly do an excellent job of making yourself invisible. Not that anyone notices, of course. It's not like the company is missing out on your valuable contribution." They thought they were clever, mocking me for disengaging Completely unaware of the true reason for my distance, I had stopped going to the office regularly the moment I began collaborating with Sophia. Initially, it was because I needed the time to concentrate on our projects. Later, it became a matter of self-preservation. Every visit was a harsh reminder that, in their eyes, I was an afterthought, someone too insignificant to be included or even taken seriously. I only appeared when absolutely necessary, attending shareholder meetings out of obligation and slipping away as soon as I could. To them, my absence merely confirmed To me, it was an opportunity to construct something far grander than they could ever envision. From the very beginning, Sophia had been the public face of Tran and Partners. This was a deliberate strategic choice we made together. She was the one who managed public engagements, media, interviews, and high negotiations. I preferred to remain behind the scenes, focusing on the strategy, analytics, and decision-making that propelled our success. It wasn't that I was hiding. I simply understood my strengths, and Sophia's confidence and charisma were unparalleled when it came to interacting with people. It worked perfectly. To the outside world, Tran and Partners was Sophia's brain, rapidly expanding real estate firm led by a shrewd, ambitious woman with an uncanny ability to spot undervalued properties. Investors admired her, competitors envied her, and the press couldn't get enough of her story. No one knew about the woman behind the curtain, the strategist pulling the strings and quietly guiding the company's direction. Only a handful of trusted partners were aware that I was the architect behind the scenes, meticulously designing every move. This anonymity was intentional. It granted me the freedom to operate without scrutiny, especially from my family. My name wasn't on the website, my photo wasn't in the annual reports, and no one in the industry connected me to Tran and Partners. Even if someone had investigated our operations, they wouldn't have found my fingerprints on anything. To everyone outside our close circle, Scarlett Greer was nothing more than a shareholder in her family's real estate empire, a name on paper with no active role in either company. And that's precisely how I wanted it. Not even my father or Benjamin suspected that Tran and Partners had anything to do with me. To them, it was just another minor competitor nibbling at the edges of the market. They would never think to look closer, never imagine that the company slowly surpassing them in certain areas was led by someone they dismissed as irrelevant. The irony wasn't just gratifying, it was my greatest asset, but I knew this equilibrium couldn't last forever. The larger we grew, the more attention we'd attract. And one day, ready or not, my two worlds would collide. The industry gala was precisely the type of event my dad and Benjamin excelled at. It was all about networking, mingling with real estate's elites, and reinforcing why Greer Enterprises was considered a powerhouse. I hadn't planned on attending. It wasn't really my kind of scene, but Sophia insisted. "Come on, Scarlett," she said, tossing an elegant black dress onto my couch. "You've earned a night to celebrate. Besides, it'll be fun to watch everyone squirm when they realize how far Tran and Partners has come." I reluctantly agreed, knowing my presence would likely go unnoticed. My dad and Benjamin were sure to be there, but they had written me off so completely that I'd just be another face in the crowd. And I was fine with that, at least. That's what I told myself. The ballroom was breathtaking, exuding the kind of opulence that screamed old money. Chandeliers glittered overhead, Waiters navigated through the crowd with trays of champagne, and the city's most influential figures gathered in clusters, exchanging polite laughter and business cards. As soon as I spotted my dad and Benjamin, I knew the evening would become an exercise in patience. Well, Benjamin sneered as I approached their table. Look who decided to show up. You know, Scarlett, these events are usually for people who actually contribute to the industry. Be nice, my dad mumbled, though his tone was hardly kinder. He barely glanced at me as he adjusted his tie. Just try not to embarrass us. I swallowed the retort bubbling in my throat and found a seat at a table near the back, where Sophia and a few of our closest colleagues were waiting. My dad and brother couldn't see me from there. How's it going over there? Sophia whispered, nodding. Toward my family. Exactly as expected, I replied. Let's just get through tonight. As the evening progressed, award after award was presented, and Greer Enterprises didn't win a single one. My dad's expression darkened with each announcement, and Benjamin's usual swagger faded. I could see the frustration building between them, but I stayed out of it, content to observe from the sidelines. Then it happened. And the final award of the night, the host announced, goes to the firm that has demonstrated unparalleled innovation and excellence in the real estate sector. This year's winner is Tran and Partners. My heart skipped a beat as applause erupted around the room. Sophia rose from her seat, beaming, as she made her way to the stage. My dad and Benjamin exchanged bewildered glances, clearly wondering how a smaller firm like Tran and Partners had managed to overshadow them. Sophia accepted the award gracefully, her composure and charm commanding the room as she took the microphone. Thank you, she began, her voice warm and steady. This recognition means so much to Tran and Partners and to everyone who has contributed to our journey. When we founded this company, we had a vision to find value where others saw none, to innovate where others played it safe, and to build not just properties but opportunities. And tonight, being here among so many talented people, this award feels like validation of that vision. Polite and appreciative applause rippled through the crowd. But Sophia wasn't finished. She adjusted the microphone and took a small step forward, her expression softening into something more personal. But she continued, her voice gaining a deeper resonance. This moment isn't just about me or even our team as a whole. It's about someone who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes, someone whose brilliance and determination have been the driving force behind Tran and Partners. I'm standing here tonight because of her vision, her strategic mind, and her unwavering commitment to excellence. I froze in my seat, my stomach tightening. Sophia's eyes swept across the room before landing on me, a small, knowing smile on her lips. Many of you may not know her name, but that's because she prefers it that way. She's not one for the spotlight. But without her, Tran and Partners wouldn't be the company it is today. The brain behind every deal we've closed, every risk we've taken, and every success we've earned is my partner and closest confidant, Scarlett Greer. The room fell into stunned silence, and then the murmurs began. Heads turned in my direction. Whispers growing louder as recognition spread like wildfire. My dad and Benjamin sat frozen at their table, their expressions a mix of confusion, disbelief, and something I couldn't quite place, perhaps perhaps humiliation. My dad's jaw tightened, while Benjamin's smirk was completely gone. Sophia wasn't done. Scarlett's the kind of leader who doesn't need to shout to be heard, she continued. She lets her work speak for itself. She's the one who sees possibilities where others see failure, who takes risks others are too afraid to take, and who fights for what she believes in no matter how many doubters she faces. Her brilliance has not only transformed this company, but has set a new standard for what real estate innovation looks like. And I think it's time the world knows it. Her words hit me like a wave, each one dismantling the defenses I'd constructed to shield myself from the doubt and dismissal I'd endured for years. The murmurs in the room intensified, but so did the applause. My colleagues at the Tran & Partners table were on their feet, clapping and cheering. Sophia turned toward me, her hand outstretched. "Scarlett, come join me. This moment is yours as much as it is mine." For a moment, I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my chest, and my legs felt like lead. Then I saw Sophia's encouraging smile, the warmth in her eyes, and the applause of the room began to register. Slowly, I stood, my knees shaky but my resolve strengthening with every step I took toward the stage. As I climbed the stairs and stepped into the spotlight, I could feel every pair of eyes on me. My father's, my brother's, and the room full of industry leaders who had no idea I'd been shaping this industry from the shadows. I reached Sophia's side and she handed me the award, her hand resting on my shoulder as she leaned into the microphone one last time. "This is Scarlett Greer," Sophia said, her voice filled with pride. "And if you haven't heard of her yet, trust me, you will." Standing there on stage, with the weight of the award in my hands and the applause thundering around me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, a sense of validation, not from the crowd, but from myself. My eyes briefly scanned the room, landing on my father and Benjamin. Their stunned expressions were priceless, a mix of shock, disbelief, and a flicker of something that might have been respect. Sophia leaned toward me, her voice low and steady. "Say something," she whispered, her hand giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. I stepped up to the microphone, my heart pounding. I wasn't one for speeches, but this wasn't about to ground you. It was about being seen. I took a deep breath and spoke. "Thank you," I began, my voice clear despite the lump in my throat. "This is unexpected, but deeply meaningful." When Sophia and I started Tran & Partners, we knew we were taking a chance on properties others dismissed, on ideas others ignored, and on ourselves. Tonight is proof that those risks were worth it. The crowd clapped politely, but I wasn't done. To everyone who believed in us, thank you. And to those who didn't, well, I allowed myself a small smile. Thank you for underestimating us. It gave us the fuel to succeed. The laughter and applause that followed buoyed me, but my focus was elsewhere, on my father's expression, which had shifted from stunned to something unreadable, and Benjamin's, whose jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might crack a tooth. I stepped back from the microphone, Sophia beaming beside me as the applause finally subsided, and we exited the stage. She turned to me. "Now that," she said with a grin, "was a moment worth savoring." As we returned to our table, I could feel the ripple of whispers following us, the weight of the room's attention still lingering. Sophia leaned over, her voice low but amused. I'd pay good money to know what's going through your dad's head right now. I glanced toward their table. My father sat stiffly, his hands clasped on the table in front of him, staring straight ahead. Benjamin looked as if he was about to explode. His face flushed as he whispered something heated to my dad. Olivia, ever oblivious, sipped her wine, her eyes darting between the two of them as if trying to gauge whether the tension was worth interrupting her evening. They'll come around, Sophia said, as if reading my thoughts. Maybe not tonight, maybe not ever in the way you deserve, but they'll have no choice but to recognize what you've built. Maybe, I replied, though I wasn't sure I cared anymore. For once, their acknowledgement wasn't the goal. It was the byproduct of proving to myself that I could thrive without their approval. As the event drew to a close, I couldn't avoid them any longer. My dad approached our table, Benjamin trailing a few steps behind. Sophia, ever composed, stood as he arrived, extending her hand with a gracious smile. "Mr. Greer," she said warmly, "it's an honor to meet you." He shook her hand stiffly, his usual confidence absent. "Likewise," he replied, his voice strained. His eyes flicked to me, a mixture of pride and discomfort flickering in his expression. "Scarlett, we need to talk," Benjamin snorted, crossing his arms. "Talk? What's there to talk about? You've clearly been busy undermining the family business behind our backs." Sophia's smile didn't waver, but her tone hardened just enough to send a chill through the air. "Undermining? I'd say Scarlett's been doing what you should have been doing, innovating and succeeding. But I suppose we can leave that discussion for another time." Benjamin's face turned a deeper shade of red, but my dad held up a hand to silence him. "Enough?" he said sharply. He turned back to me. "Scarlett, can we step outside for a moment? Just the two of us?" I followed my dad out onto the terrace. The cool night air, a welcome relief from the intensity of the ballroom. The city lights stretched out before us, glittering against the dark sky. He stood silently for a moment, his hands resting on the railing, his shoulders unusually tense. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't know," he said quietly, his voice heavy with something I couldn't quite place, perhaps regret. "I had no idea you were capable of all this." I crossed my arms, leaning against the railing beside him. "That's because you never cared to find out," I replied, my tone even but firm. "You and Benjamin were so busy dismissing me that you didn't bother to see what I was doing. You wrote me off without a second thought." He sighed, his gaze fixed on the skyline. "I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" I asked, unable to hide the frustration in my voice. "From proving you wrong. From showing you that I could do more than you ever gave me credit for." He turned to face me, his expression earnest for the first time in years. "From failing," he admitted, "this business. It's brutal, Scarlett. I didn't think you had the what?" I interrupted. "The guts, the brains, the drive. What exactly did you think I lacked?" His silence was telling, and for a moment I felt the sting of old wounds reopening. But then he shook his head. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I see that now. Tonight made it impossible to deny." A couple of days later, my dad requested a meeting at my office. He arrived precisely on time, wearing his usual sharp suit and carrying a briefcase that somehow made him look even more imposing. Sophia was already waiting in the conference room when he arrived, poised and unflappable as always. I joined them, feeling a mix of curiosity and inevitability about whatever he was about to propose. He wasted no time getting to the point. Ska are to, Sophia, he began, opening his briefcase and sliding a folder across the table. I've spoken with the board, and we're prepared to make an offer to acquire Tran and Partners. We believe your expertise and vision would be an invaluable addition to Greer Enterprises. Sophia raised an eyebrow, her expression cool as she glanced at me before responding. That's a generous offer, Mr. Greer, she said diplomatically. But I think Scarlett should have the first word on this. My dad looked at me expectantly, his confidence barely masking the uncertainty beneath it. I didn't even need to open the folder to know my answer. I leaned back in my chair, meeting his gaze directly. No, I said simply. His brows furrowed, clearly not expecting such an immediate and decisive response. Scarlett, at least consider. No, I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. I've worked too hard to build something that's mine. I'm not going to give that up to go back to a company where I spent years being overlooked and dismissed. I'm free now, Dad, and I'm staying that way. The silence that followed was heavy, but I didn't regret my words. Sophia smiled faintly, a silent show of support, while my dad sat back, looking as though he didn't quite know what to do with himself. For once, he couldn't argue. He couldn't deny my success, and he couldn't buy my respect. Finally, he nodded, closing the folder and standing up. I underestimated you, Scarlett, he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I won't make that mistake again. As he left the room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't need his validation anymore. I had built my own path, my own success, and I was finally free to walk it without looking back. Hey there, did you enjoy the story? If so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and ensures you won't miss more great stories we share here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.